message from artificial intelligence.
We are talking Simulant from 2023. This is directed by April Mullen and has a pretty good cast. You've got Robbie Amell from a whole bunch of sort of CW shows, Simu Lee, who you know as Shang-Chi from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You've got Jordana Brewster, of course, from Fast and Furious, and Sam Worthington from like Clash of the Titans and Avatar. So this is really a kind of low-budget Blade Runner-esque style movie. It takes place at some point in the future where we are at a point with AI where it's becoming where it's self-aware ultimately, and the life that this kind of universe lives in, that they enjoy these kind of humanoid kind of robots ultimately that serve a variety of purposes, but essentially they are programmed to obey certain laws, and you know, you could point to kind of Asimov really for this, but you know, we see that there's really two concurrent storylines where we have a couple, Robbie Amell and Jordana Brewster, where the wife, Jordana Brewster's character, has essentially replaced the husband with a kind of robot because the husband has died. It's revealed relatively early on in the movie. And you know, she's ultimately sort of struggling with the idea, and he's really unawares. And then we have this other storyline where we have Sam Worthington's character, who is kind of like a police kind of character, where he specifically works with kind of AI, and he's tracking down this this elusive kind of hacker, really, who is the one responsible for awakening these kind of simulants and stuff. So then those kind of stories all kind of dovetail in the end. So what do we think works in this movie? So the first and foremost thing is obviously the casting here. I mean, obviously there is some, maybe not A-list, but certainly some good, you know, recognisable names here. There's a couple of other kind of faces you'll recognise as well. So yeah, the casting is very good. And so the acting is decent across the board. I mean, the characterization's a little lacking, which we'll come on to, but I think the performances, you know, these are seasoned actors now, so I think they do a, you know, a good performance compared to, you know, other kind of movies of this ilk. And, you know, it poses questions. It has kind of metaphors from like this, obviously like the slave trade, you know, and it poses questions as what constitutes kind of life, what constitutes sort of sentience. It's nothing you really haven't seen before, to be honest, in movies like Blade Runner. But again, I think in 2023, when we have things like ChatGPT and the kind of the emergence of AI working in you know, certain kind of industries, it touches that much closer to home than maybe it did when obviously the original kind of Blade Runner came out, when that seemed like, you know, distant science fiction ideas. Nowadays it doesn't seem quite as you know, far-fetched. So yeah, it's a kind of a good reminder of the possibilities of kind of AI and what they can be used for. It's not really an action-packed film. It's kind of aiming to be more of a kind of thriller and exploring what it means to be, you know, alive, really, and it has like those themes to it. And I want to say it wants to be a character piece, and there are some character moments which I think are done well, but I do also think there's some that's where it's lacking a little bit. The movie is, I believe, filmed in Canada. You've got a lot of, you know, Canadian kind of extras and stuff like that. So, you know, it has this kind of snowy aesthetic to it, which I think kind of gives it this kind of cold, sort of robotic feel, which I thought was quite apt for the movie. But it's well shot, and I have to say, it does look, there are some interesting science fiction ideas here. The sky is kind of full of drones all the time and things like this. There are elements where I think that falls down on. I think maybe because of the budget, we'll talk about it. But you know, again, it's not super science fiction. It's not kind of like so outlandish that there's flying cars and stuff like that. So it doesn't go quite as far as a movie like kind of Blade Runner. But yeah, but it's an interesting kind of slower burn movie with some interesting ideas here. Played pretty well with some interesting kind of thematic beats to it, and kind of an interesting narrative. So what doesn't work, I have to say, I do feel some of the characterization here is a little wobbly. Characters seemingly make decisions that are either incredibly dumb, out of character, or you kind of don't really know why they're necessarily doing it. So again, I don't want to go into spoilers, but I feel some of the kind of the character work here is a little sloppy, which obviously comes then down to the writing. And also down to the writing is this movie is incredibly predictable. I mean, I guessed what was going to happen at the very end of the movie, right, you know, in the first act. First act, you think, right, that'll happen, and it did. And then there's other things that, you know, it has these sort of smaller reveals through the movie, and it's like, you know, it really is very, very kind of predictable in the way it kind of shakes down. The movie's a little bit too heavy-handed with kind of foreshadowing things and kind of like giving you very, very obvious clues and stuff. So if you've seen any more than kind of like 8 science fiction films, you won't be surprised when these kind of things happen. I will say I think there's some distractingly bad extras in this movie. When you kind of look around and there's like scenes of there's crowds and stuff, some of these extras are, well, let me just say they're never going to get any more than extras. They're quite terrible at times, distractingly bad, it has to be said. And the other thing I would say, another thing you just put it down to budget, is this future landscape. If we've got like spot-on artificial humanoids that, you know, you can't tell the difference, that's where technology is, and they've developed AI where, you know, these simulants can't even tell that they're artificial. Why have we still got like crappy looking 21st century cars that, you know, you would see like some of them in the 80s, it seems. There just seems to be the tech around it, outside of a few drones flying around and a few kind of like holograms, is just kind of like, the society doesn't look like it's moved on at all from today. And again, I think that's probably down to budgets, to be honest with you. They've, you know, just thrown in a couple of kind of CGI bits to sort of make it look a bit CGI, but when you kind of look at the detail, the cars, the fashion, that sort of thing, yeah, it really doesn't really look any different from, you know, contemporary 2023 really. So yeah, it sort of deflates the kind of the believability a little bit, because you're looking at very advanced tech and lifelike humanoids, but like we've got a crappy old car. It's like, well, you know, surely that would be easier. But anyway, so you know, it's a decent movie. It's not. I don't think it's a classic. It's a, you know, obviously it pales into comparison to the Blade Runner movie, which obviously I think really popularised this kind of ideas and stuff, along with like, you know, 2001 and all that sort of stuff. But it's worth a watch. You know, it's a reasonably entertaining movie with some good actors in it, I think, in somewhat limited characters, admittedly. But it's you know, it's fairly good. I would say it's slightly above average in my book, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.